Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed for coming. We're now going into the more formal stage of our proceedings, and we're very, very privileged to have on stage with us some very senior people from many different areas. So from right to left we have Eddie Martin, who is the leader of the entire Cumbria County Council, and Jill Stannard, who's the Chief Executive of the entire Cumbria County Council. So they're responsible for the whole of Cumbria, not just this patch of Cumbria, 500,000 people, is that right? Give or take. Give or take. So we're very privileged to have them with us here in Great Asby. And then on my left, Joan Raine, who many of you will know, who is the Chair of the Eden District Council, Gordon Nicholson, who is the leader of the Eden District Council, and Bert Provan, who is a senior civil servant in London, who is responsible within the Department of Communities and Local Government for the Big Society projects. This is really intended as a question and answer session. We have a roving mic. There will be, I'm sure, many additional questions specifically from communities. You saw Anton Draper on the stage earlier, who remains our main lead on the Eden Vanguard projects, which is what the Big Society projects here in Eden are called. If there are specific community questions which aren't addressed in the course of this talk, either Anton or Catherine, who I hope most of you know, who works in my office, Catherine Anderson, will be able to take up those issues and follow them up. There are, of course, thousands of issues, but we are going too far off. What I might do, just put down the thing for a second, last. Make some brief I think if it's all right, we'll go straight into questions and give everybody a chance to answer from the perspective of DCLG District, County, or indeed from my own role. So over to all of you.
Andy Lloyd, Cumbria Rural Housing Trust. The question for County. I understand that there are obviously difficult decisions to be made about disposal of assets, but where there are assets which a local authority might own, which might represent a rare opportunity for perhaps affordable housing, which could be developed by a housing association or a community land trust, how does the county go about deciding whether to do that or to dispose of those assets for cash value?
Thank you for the question. Thank you all very much indeed for not only coming, but it seems to me the significance of today is reflected in the size of the audience and the participants and all the people who came. And it's a subject which I think the County Council takes very seriously. That is devolving authority and all those other things down. The further, in my opinion, the further we can all get away from Westminster, the better, and the further you can get away from the County Hall, the better, because it's your community. What we are currently doing, we have a building asset register, and you may be surprised to know that throughout the county we have something like 850 different properties, including schools, 313 schools. But nonetheless, far too many properties, building assets. We've also now obtained our land assets, and we have bits of land all over the place, from Barrow to Brampton, from Workington all the way across to Dent. We have bits of land, an acre here, half an acre, 2 acres here, and so on. Under the law which was passed a few years ago, what is called a well-being facility, we can pass on land and indeed buildings to local communities for nominal amounts, £1 a year, a peppercorn rent or something. We do not need all that land, we certainly don't need all those buildings, and in Whitehaven, for example, we've recently moved 3 buildings into one, Blencathra House, and that's worked extremely well. We're working on Carlisle now to reduce the number of buildings that we have and to focus our staff in many fewer buildings. There will be surplus buildings. As far as I am concerned, as the leader of the council, providing a sustainable community group comes forward with a plan to take on that particular building, then I will be delighted to pass it on to you. I might just add, and you didn't hear this from me and it's top secret, we currently need to spend about £55 million a year on property renovation, maintenance, and all those kind of things. £55 million. We spend about 3. So you can see that if we can get rid of property, and if some of the communities want some of those redundant properties, I think most of us in the county will be delighted to pass it over to you. Now for the real facts, let me pass you over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Eddie. Well, I think the leaders answered most of the questions. We do, members actually make all the decisions on assets and disposal of those assets. What we as officers do is give them the best advice that we can, and obviously part of our advice is based on exactly what Eddie says, is the sustainability. So there's an issue about if some of these assets anyway have backlog maintenance, then the community needs to think very seriously about taking on assets where there's a history of them not being terribly well maintained. But your question was largely about land for affordable housing, and the county has on at least in 2 incidents in the last year passed housing in partnership over to district councils for the use of affordable housing. So passed land over at a less than market value, so that working together in partnership with the district councils and social landlords, we're able to facilitate affordable housing. And we're really interested in the changing legislation around planning that would allow more flexibility in the use of that. So, for example, we can now be less constrained about how many houses are built on a piece of land, because it might be that you want, in a very rural areas, you're talking 1 or 2 rather than larger housing developments. And those kind of flexibilities which are now in with new planning legislation would be really useful for us. So there may be more flexibility. Clearly, affordable housing has to be a priority for all people who live in rural areas, and we know it's time and time again it's the priority that people locally
Is it possible
say.
to give communities prior notice if an asset is not for sale, so they have a chance to put together a business plan?
Our intention would be, when our land and asset register is available, would be to have that on our website so that anybody could have a look at the land, because the land and the assets the county has belong to all of us. We're all council taxpayers, we all pay for it. So we're going to put all that on our website, so you'd be able to look at what land is owned by your council in your area. And then it's a matter of what plans we have for them, and we're hoping to overlay that on the website.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Libby.
Hi, yeah, it's Libby Bateman from the Upper Eden Community Plan. I'd like to ask the County Council if they could tell us who we need to talk to about broadband, because I've just been talking to the broadband people on the table there, and I know you guys are taking the role as a client, is that right, in the BD UK bid? Can you explain what that means and who the lead person is that we need to be communicating with?
Okay, well, this is a new issue. So just to explain to people in the room roughly where we are on this. Firstly, thank you all very much for all the effort that you have put in to the broadband bids. Your work has been seriously instrumental in securing a very generous contribution from central government towards broadband in Cumbria. We are very, very much hoping that we're going to be able to get enough money together to do the whole of Cumbria. But we are also very aware that the money that's coming is money that was given for sparsely populated rural areas. And we're going to ensure as part of that that all of the work that you have done to make sure that communities like Great Asby, communities such as those around Kirby, Stephen and Milestone, are able to get a minimum 2 meg for 100% of the people in the remotest rural parts of this constituency, and next generation access for the majority. We're going to have to go into a very complicated bidding process. County Council is going to be central in that. BIS is going to be central in that. Communities can play a very, very useful role in that. What do I mean by that? If we're going into a deal or a negotiation, for example, with British Telecom, and we have X amount on the table, let us say 10 or 15 million pounds on the table, if we can say that communities here in Great Asby and in other places can get 80 or 90% of the people in the community will commit to signing up to the broadband, that gives us a much stronger negotiating position. That allows us to drive back at BT and say, for this money, we are demanding these specs. That then allows us to achieve the dream that all of us in this room have shared, which is that if we can actually get hyper-connectivity, super fast broadband into people's houses, we can then be a lab for a whole series of other things. Things I was talking about at the beginning, that people with Parkinson's from this part of the countryside going to Newcastle Hospital should become unnecessary. Should be able to do it down a live video stream. The County Council is also going to be absolutely central partner in this, because of course they are in an ideal position to understand how the other government departments work, how the Primary Care Trust works, how applications can be extended to education. And so as we work, and our commitment to you is to work from the outside in, which means from the most rural areas, but from there we're going to move across the whole of Cumbria. And that's going to involve BIS, and we have 2 people from BIS here in the room who you've been talking to, and County Council playing a central role in trying to coordinate this, and most importantly of all, procure it and deal with some very, very complicated commercial and technological specifications.
Well, as Rory says, we're really early stages with this now. And in fact, while I'm here today, one of our corporate directors is meeting with the broadband people, talking about how it might work, and I've got a meeting with them on Monday. Rory and I had a conversation about an hour ago. We talked about, actually, why don't we set up a high-level steering board that actually coordinates all that work. And from that, we'd obviously need somebody on it who's going to represent the communities and be a link for us into the communities. And there was somebody who'd suggested themselves earlier on that they might play that role. So in the next few weeks, we really need to get that steering group set up and look at how we link out to the communities, to the broadband champions, and also to make sure we've got the technical experts, the link with BIS, the link with government, and the link within Cumbria on the PCT and education providers to make sure that we can pull off what is our ambition, that everybody will be able to get that access in rural areas to broadband.
Okay, next question. Yeah, the back, Carl.
Carl Bendelar, Heart of Eden Development Trust. Planning constraints are a reoccurring theme. How much flexibility is there in the system to reinterpret those constraints, or are we locked into legislation?
I pass this on to district.
Thank you. I think Eden District Council, we've now published and adopted our core strategy, and we have published and adopted the supplementary planning document on housing. And I think we're among the first councils in the country to do that. Quite deliberately, the content of these documents is flexible, and there are considerable opportunities for exceptions to the mainstream, which focuses development on key service centres and allows it in the other so-called sustainable communities, those with a number of facilities. But I mean, I think what we cannot do at the moment, and this is because of previous government restrictions, is we cannot allow or regard redundant farm buildings as brownfield sites.